Hi, thanks for stopping by. I'm Daniel Hylton, and in the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to create an oil painting on this canvas using the Alla Prima method of oil painting. Alla Prima is Italian for at first attempt. You probably know it better as the wet on wet technique. All it really means is that the canvas has been coated with a thin, even coat of a liquid oil paint, and this provides a slick surface and makes it easier for the artist to move color on the canvas. With oil paints being a rather stiff medium, it may not be the only way to do an oil painting quickly, but it's probably the best way. Now, in 30 minutes, this is not going to be a Van Gogh or a Winslow Homer, I know that. But I promise you it will be a genuine work of art, something that if I give it to my sister, she'll like it well enough to hang it on the wall of her guest bedroom, rather than her basement or garage or the dumpster. So, let's get my glasses, start the timer, and let's get going. Now, as I work here, I'm going to try to stay off to the left out of your way so you can see what I'm doing. And yeah, I'm going to especially try to keep this guy out of your way. Yes, I know that I have a prominent nose. In fact, I was informed of that fact at the tender age of 6. Indeed, I was told that I have a gruesome nose. And maybe I'll tell you that story in a little bit. Anyway, let's get going here. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about how complicated the sky is. I really just kind of want a high, thin, overcast, like you sometimes see at high elevations, because all it's going to be really is a backdrop for the mountain and the lake I'm going to put in front of it. That's what we're doing today, a mountain and a lake. That'll probably work. Okay. And since we're going to have a lake, let's get some water down here. And run that all the way back up there. Oh, don't move so much here. There we go. Okay, do the other side here. All right, and I'll just get the big blender brush and we'll blend all this in. Make sure we like what we have here before we go too far. And I think I'm going to like that sky, all right. Like I said, it's just going to be a backdrop for the mountain and the lake we're going to put in front of it. I love painting mountains. I was raised in the mountains of Idaho. I live in Tennessee now. Tennessee is a beautiful and eminently livable state, but I do miss the mountains. All right, let's get a mountain going here. Yeah. How about right here? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And we'll kind of bring down. So the side, put a couple little bumps in it, I guess. Yeah, I'm going to like that all right, I think. Okay. Get my brush here and bring that down. Are you wondering about the gruesome nose story? If you are, then maybe you agree that my nose is gruesome. But, I guess I could tell you about that. I'm going to put a little green on this brush, and just a little bit, so it kind of looks like maybe there's some trees trying to climb up the mountain back there. And since the sun's over there, we're going to have the bright snow on that side. All right, let me tell you the gruesome nose story. We were up at my grandparents' for Thanksgiving. Big family event. Lots of uncles, aunts, cousins. And there weren't any male cousins my age. So I was out in the backyard playing by myself, minding my own business. You know, I'm gonna want that to be a little more defined here at the top. Yeah, like that. Okay. And okay. And we'll put some back here as if the sun's hitting that. And maybe even that. Okay. Get some shadow color going here. So anyway, we're up at our grandparents' house, and I'm out in the backyard minding my own business. A couple of my girl cousins came prancing around the corner of the house singing, "Danny's got a gruesome nose, Danny's got a gruesome nose." Of course, being young and dumb, I had to ask them what they meant. So I asked them, "What do you mean I have a gruesome nose?" "Well," they said, "it grew some, and then it grew some more." Yeah, I know, clever girls, right? Ruined my Thanksgiving. That's actually not the end of the story, however. My grandfather must have witnessed the whole thing. And my grandfather was a very wise man. In fact, he was noted for his wisdom. They made him a judge. And so while I'm sitting out on the back porch, feeling all sorry for myself, all abused and disconsolate, he came out and sat down beside me. And he said, "Danny, that wasn't very nice. Those girls should not have done that." But he said, "I'll tell you something. God must have thought that your head was pretty important to give you a nose like that." And for the second time that day, I found myself asking somebody what they meant. And I said, "What do you mean, Grandpa?" He said, "Well, think about it. Your head," he said, "will never lie outside overnight for lack of a handle to bring it in by." I know it's where my cousins got their cleverness, probably. But I'll tell you something. He didn't stop there. Now I'm going to put some foothills back in here. And have them kind of go up here, off to the left a little bit. Well, anyway, he didn't stop there. He said, "You know, Danny, you need to look at my face. You see this schnoz in the middle of my face? That's where you got yours. Now, I would have liked to bequeath you something better, like maybe good looks or a high intellect, but no, I gave you my nose. And I'll tell you something, that made it all okay, because it was true. He had a large nose, and he'd done pretty well in life with his nose. So I figured, you know what? I would be okay too." Told you he was a wise man. But anyway, I'm going to try to keep my gruesome nose out of your way here while we're painting. Now I'm going to have a little hump here. Maybe another one. And I'm going to vary the intensity of this color. So it looks like these hills back here have humps and hollows in them. And let's see, that shoreline needs to bend a little bit, because Shorelines are never straight. And let's have another one bend around a little bit here. And we need to vary this color too. So, and yeah, I don't want my reflections back here to be seen all that much. Don't want them to be all of that definitive. Okay, let's run a blender brush across here. Okay. And now let's create a shoreline back there. I'd like to create a gray shoreline because, you know, probably a lot of rocks back there, but white shows up better. So we're going to use white. Okay. And I think that's good enough for those background hills, right? Let's get some trees going in the foreground here, over on the right-hand side here. Now, trees that live at high altitudes, they kind of have a, oh, I'm in your way, aren't I? Sorry about that. Let me move aside here. Trees that live at high altitude, they kind of have a rough life, I know, and look a little bit ragged. But I like my trees, especially these fir trees that tend to live up near the high mountains, you know, lakes in the high mountains. I like them to have a certain bit of elegance. Elegant, you know, that's a word I didn't think much about till I met my wife all those many years ago. The part of the world where I grew up, the girl I married was the beauty. She was the most beautiful girl in that area. She was beautiful, she was sophisticated, intelligent, genteel, kind, everything a woman should be, everything a human should be. And the line of boys or young men that wanted to win her hand, it stretched out her father's driveway and 2 or 3 miles down the road. But somehow she decided on me. Yeah, I don't know why. And in fact, most people can't figure it out. I know when we meet people, you know, they'll always look at her because she's lovely to look at. But sooner or later, their gaze slides over my way, and I can see their expression change. And I know what they're thinking. They're thinking, she got poor eyesight or poor judgment? Or does she just have stunningly low standards? I don't know. But I'll tell you something. I'm not going to risk my happiness by asking her. All right. Now, let's, I'd like to, get in your way again, I'd like to have the front of the trees have a little more structure than what these right here have. Because, you know, it's not just the sides where the limbs hang down, they hide down toward the viewer. But oh well, nature's not perfect, and neither must the artist be. Okay. Let me put one more right there. Well, let me see. I don't want those hills in the background to look like they just disappear into nothing. So I want them to disappear behind these trees. So, okay, that'll work. Now let's have a little protrusion here. Comes down off here. Maybe like a little peninsula or something. Let's see. Yeah, kind of curve around a little bit here. Yeah. I need to darken that up under there. Those trees a little bit. You know what? Let's have a rock out in that point there. Let's have a rock out here. Yeah, kind of pretty good size rock. And I don't know, maybe another one right here. Yeah, and maybe another small one. Put some black underneath those to make them stand out. How are we doing for time? Okay, we got about 15 minutes left. Put a little black under there to kind of make those stand out a little bit. And yeah, and then we need some white on them to make them show up, as if the sun is shining through. Maybe the sun's finding its way through those trees back there. Up, 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 up. Color there. That'll work. Okay. Now we need to have some reflections here. Now I don't really, like I told you, I don't want my reflections to be too noticeable. I don't want them to be. I mean, I know we got to have reflections here, but I don't want my reflections to take over the whole thing. Okay, let me get let me see. I guess I'll use my big blender brush again. And okay. And I'll put another shoreline in here. Oops. Got to have a little more clarity on that. Those will be okay. Let's go the other side here. And let's put some trees in over here. Now these are going to have to be a little taller because I'm going to make them be a little closer. Not this one. This can be out here on the edge, so it doesn't have to be that big. Okay. And like I said, I want to kind of push my brush down a little bit so the front of the tree has a little structure, a little definition. And let's have a tall tree, yeah. Right about there. Yeah, okay. Make something so thick over here. Give Sasquatch a place to build his house. You know, I know you've heard this before, but Sasquatch saw me once. We were up at Rainbow Lakes in Idaho with my older brothers, and he saw me clear as bell. Nobody believes him. He even had a grainy video that I think he posted on YouTube, but it wasn't good quality, and I don't know, his equipment was bad or something. It just wasn't definitive. Okay. You know, I love painting. The first half of my working life, I worked on construction of various kinds. And second half of my working life, I wrote books. And now I'm older and I have time to paint, so I'm painting. And like I said, I really enjoy it. Let's have a big one. In fact, let's have a big one with a trunk of some kind. Put it right there. We're going to have to get some, yeah, we're going to have another little peninsula here. In fact, let's bring that completely down like that. And before we do the bottom of this tree, that's going to be dark back in there. So, anyway, I think I'll have a big rock there, so I'm going to leave that for a minute. I'll leave a space here for him because I'm going to have a big rock on this side. Okay, so let's get these trees done. Covered up that trunk all the way. Oh well. Yeah, only got about 10 minutes left here anyway, so I better get going. Okay. I need to have some highlight on that tree right there. If I can get this to work. Yeah, just kind of make him stand out in front of all those other dark ones a little bit. I wonder if I should put a little white in that. Kind of make it stand out a little better. Now, you know what? I'm going to have to clear that off a little bit if I'm going to have a trunk in there. Okay. Get rid of some of that paint. And you know what? These trees always have these little things that kind of, here, let me get a little bit of thinner. These trees always have these little things that kind of hang down, you know. Yeah, they need to be sharper than that. Yeah, like that. Okay. And then let's, I'll tell you what, let's put a little highlight on that tree trunk. More than that. Yeah, and then let's put this on the back side here. Okay, that'll work. And then we can put some huckleberry brush around his feet like that. And going out over the lake a little bit, and I'm gonna back off the pressure of my brush a little bit so it looks like these are kind of leaves hanging out here. And you know what? I got time here, I think. I'm gonna have to maybe have a couple more trunks in here. There we go. Now, it needs to be a little more defined than that. Like that. Okay. Like I said, I'm gonna have I have a big old rock on this side, I think. So get my gray color out here and let's put a big old rock that lays right there. And have a little black on the bottom, just kind of, and let's have a break in it or something right there. Yeah. Put a little black around the bottom here. Okay. And then highlight it with some white. Make it look like it's a big old rock on this side. Okay. Now, you know what? I want a little color over here. I want a little color. Let's see. Let's get some. See if this will give us a little color. Man, maybe some yellow. Get some yellow in here, just to kind of have a little bit of variegation, and see if we can get some of this cad to work in here a little bit. Just little spots, quite that much. Maybe even, maybe even over there a little bit. Just have a little color. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some flowers or something over there. And maybe there's a bunch right here. Okay. And then let's put brush up against that rock there. Let's see. Let's get some dark green in here too. Kind of define the bottom of that rock a little bit. And you know what, back there, let's give them some of those little, just a couple here and there. Okay, how much time we got? Oh, we got about 4 minutes here. So you know what? I think I'd like well, for one thing, I want some darker color in here, just in spots. Break that up a little bit. And I think I want one little tree out there. How about that? Let's do that. Let's have one little lone pine tree right here. Just a little guy. Just kind of sticking up like that. Oh, you know what? I think we have a finished painting here. So let me sign it and we'll be done. Use some of this dark green color, I think. Get some more thinner to make it work for me. And let me sign this right here. Okay. All right. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time. And if you like this, why don't you subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you'd like. That would help me a lot and I'd really appreciate it. If you really liked it, share it with somebody. And also be sure to hit that notification button because we're going to be posting more. And I'd like to see you again when we post more. I do hope to see you again. Again, thank you for watching. And until then, God bless. Take care.